Buenos dias. This video builds on the previous video we did. I'll put a link to the other video in here about setting up Windows Server 2016 with the desktop experience. This is running on Oracle VirtualBox. The only thing we've done to it so far is add IIS and change it so we can see like the default hidden files through Windows or through File Explorer. So what we want to do, the objective is to install Nessus on this. We need to make sure we have internet connectivity first. I think we moved this to a different network, so let's just check to make sure we're on the NATed network. So I'm going to hit the home key and the host key, which is the right control key for VirtualBox, then home. Let's look at our settings. We're going to go to network and we're going to change this back to NAT. Once we're on NAT, we're going to go to a browser and we're going to search. We'll go to Google here and we'll search for, we'll get a bunch of these warnings. That's okay, we'll get beyond them. We'll go ahead and add. We're going to have to do a lot of adding here until we get Firefox installed. Add that. So actually the first thing we'll do, let's just get Firefox installed so we can get beyond this for now. So let's type in Firefox. We need Firefox anyway for Nessus. And we'll download Firefox. Go ahead and add that. We'll download Firefox here. And we'll get like two more things. Uncheck that. Add. Alright. Download now. Yes. Let's stop using Internet Explorer. We'll add that one. Add it. Close. I think we're almost done. Let's try it one more time. There we go. So let's save that and we will run it as soon as it's done. Okay, run that. And while this is going, I'm going to close Internet Explorer. So the objective here is to download Nessus, and Nessus will take like, it may take a couple hours to update the plugins. You do have to put your email address and some information in on the Nessus website because it does email you an activation key that is required to install Nessus. And we are using the Nessus home version for this demonstration. With the home version, you can scan up to 16 IP addresses with one scanner. It's pretty much just like the professional version, except it's missing a few options, but it gives you a really good understanding of Nessus. Now Firefox is done, perfect. So let's do a search here on Google for Nessus Home. Right there, and here's the URL. We have to put in the information here for activation code. So go ahead and put in your email, your name and your email address, and you'll receive an activation code after you press register, and you'll be able to do the download. So after you put your information in, you get this button here to download Nessus. That's what we want to do. Scroll down. We are running Windows Server 2016, which is right here. Nessus 8.22 is the latest. x64. We are running a 64-bit version, but we can check. Let's go to our settings and just check real quick to make sure it is 64-bit. It's always good to validate. Go to the system. Go to About, and it is 64-bit right there. Perfect. So this is the correct one. Download this. Accept the agreement. Save the file, and then we'll run the file and we'll walk through the installation here. It'll take quite a bit of time, like I said, when it gets to the plugins. It's a little bit frustrating how long it takes, but that's okay. Nessus is actually a pretty good tool. So let's go to the directory here, double click on it to launch it, run. Next, accept, next, install. This will go pretty quickly. It's when you bring up the GUI. So what happens when Nessus installs, it sets up a web server that runs on port 8834 HTTPS. So once this is completed, we need to go back to Firefox and browse to port 8834 using HTTPS. WinPCAP is necessary as well. This is the Windows packet capture driver, which allows Windows to capture packets in promiscuous mode. If you've installed Wireshark, you probably already have WinPCAP on your system. All right, it's finished. All this goes pretty quickly, but like I said, your patience will be tested this next part here. We can just ignore that. So all that's going to do is take us to the default page, which we can just browse to anyway. And this is where you're going to need that key, that activation key. So make sure you have that handy, you've checked your email, and have that key ready. All right, so let's browse to HTTPS. Localhost 8834. We'll get a warning here. That's okay. The certificate is self-signed. An exception there. Confirm this. And now we need to create an account. So I'm just going to do admin and admin for now. But operationally, you want to use a better password than admin. So here's where you put the activation code. This is the one you were emailed. So my code is right here. I'm just going to copy this, Control C, and paste it in here if it works. And it doesn't always work. I have not installed the virtual machine, the VirtualBox tools yet. So let's just type it in for the sake of expediency. So here we go. Oops. See if that worked. Oh, I'm missing a C0, EC, CC5, D7, D6, 76B. Okay. Looks like that worked. All right, so right here is the long waiting game. This may take, it could take an hour, it could take 2 hours, it could take 45 minutes. Right now it's 5:54. I'm going to pause the video and we'll come back when this is finished. In the meantime, while this is going, just so we don't have to do that manual typing, let's go ahead and set up the tools here in VirtualBox. So we can do that by, again, the right control and home. We can go to devices here, insert guest edition CD image. This is basically like VMware tools, if you're familiar with that. That'll put it in a virtual CD in the D drive. We'll install these additions, and this will allow us to copy stuff between the guest and the host and vice versa. All right, so I'll let that finish. All right, it looks like Nessus has finally finished updating the plugins. The plugins are really the meat of Nessus, and it takes a long time to get them updated. Hopefully from now on, when you update Nessus, it should not take as long. I'm pretty certain it will not take as long unless you wait a really, really long time before updating it again. The first scan we are going to do is a unauthenticated scan. So click on Create New Scan. We are going to choose Advanced. This just gives us more options, but we don't have to select all the options. We are going to scan the local host, so select Windows, or you can name it whatever you want. I'm going to name mine Windows Server 2016 local unauthenticated or non-credentialed, same thing. We do not have to put a description. The target will be 127.0.0.1, and this is really all we need to put. For the authenticated, we'll assign credentials here. For this one, this is pretty much it. This video is just to kind of run through Nessus at a cursory level. So I click on save, and now I have this saved. If I scroll over a little bit, you should see the little play button that launches the scan. You can click on play, and then you can expand the scan while it is running. So again, we are doing a unauthenticated scan against a local system, which is a Windows Server 2016 virtual machine running in VirtualBox. As it's running, you can expand it here, and it'll give you a percent. It says it's 2% complete. We're only scanning this one host. We'll give this a little bit of time, and then what we'll do afterwards is an authenticated scan and compare the results. Actually, while this one is running, let's go ahead and create the authenticated scan. So we go to My Scans. We'll scroll over here. We'll do a new scan. We'll do an advanced scan again. This time, we are going to name it Windows Server 2016 local, but it will be authenticated or credentialed. Again, the target is 127.0.0.1. Over here, though, this is the difference. We are going to set up credentials. So click on credentials. Then under Windows, expand this. If you're scanning a Linux system, you can set up SSH credentials as well. We'll use password for the authentication method. Administrator. Administrate. Helps if you spell right. Password, what I set up for this machine, if I can remember it. And this is the account we are authenticated to. The password. Let me just click on save. We can run this one now at the same time. We don't have to wait for the other one to finish. I'll click on launch. And now we have two scans running. The authenticated scan should be much more accurate than the unauthenticated. The reason is when we run this type of scan, a credentialed or authenticated scan, Nessus will actually log into the target system with the credentials you supply and check DLL versions and software that's installed in that system. It'll do netstat, it will look at local groups, it will read the registry, etc. So it can do a much more exhaustive check than an unauthenticated scan. If you're doing a vulnerability assessment operationally, you should be doing authenticated. Otherwise, you're going to get a false impression of your security and you will get a bunch of false positives. An unauthenticated scan cannot tell you which applications are vulnerable that are installed on a system. An unauthenticated scan can really only assess the system across the network. The beauty of an authenticated scan is any client-side attacks or attacks against applications like Adobe, like any installed applications or Microsoft Office, vulnerabilities with those type of applications will be enumerated with an authenticated scan. We'll let these run. Let's just check the results so far. So on the unauthenticated, we have two mediums here. A non-existent page for the website. So it looks like it tried to go to this URL, which is kind of interesting, and got a non-authenticated page, or sorry, a non-existent page. We also have one other medium. Let's go look at the authenticated while this one is still running. It looks like the authenticated, or the unauthenticated finished already. So we didn't get a lot of findings with that one. Let's go to the authenticated. They switched positions because the currently running scan will be on top. We have one high with the authenticated. It tells us that Windows Defender is out of date more than 1 day. And the only way we could tell this is by logging on to the system. So Nessus, obviously the authentication is working. We'll let this run. It's 7% done. We expect to see a lot more findings for the authenticated than the unauthenticated. Just bear in mind that an attacker on your network, if they're doing a vulnerability assessment using Nmap or whatever tool they want to, Nessus, OpenVAS, an attacker should not have authenticated access to your network. So the results that they will see will be from this perspective. So if you want to kind of have an idea of what an attacker may see versus what you really have on your network, what you're really vulnerable to on your systems, you probably want to run both types of scans. All right, so still running. We have a couple criticals though, so let's check these out. Malware protection engine. Interesting. So we've got a remote code execution vulnerability against the malware protection engine. So we can look this up to see if there's an exploit that matches this. So having a vulnerability is one issue, but there has to be a way to exploit the vulnerability. Typically, if it's listed as critical, there's a matching exploit. We can look in Metasploit, for instance, and see if there's a vulnerability against this. And maybe the next video we'll try to exploit this particular one. But you notice we talked about authenticated versus unauthenticated. Unauthenticated, we stopped after 2 medium findings. That's all we got. Took 6 minutes to run. Not a whole lot. We had 2 medium findings and a bunch of informationals. The informationals are just kind of like what was going on during the scan, what ports are open, etc., what the NIC manufacturer is. With authenticated, we've already got 6 critical now, 25 highs and 7 mediums, and we're at 96%. So with the 6 critical, we might be able to exploit something. Typically, a rating of high from a risk rating for vulnerability perspective, high or better, is usually exploitable with not a lot of difficulty. And here we've got a couple. We've got MS17010, which is the Eternal Blue. This is easily exploitable. There is an exploit that matches this vulnerability in the Metasploit framework. There's also MS17010. So this might be an exploit we can try as well. I haven't actually done this one before, but we can check it out in the next video. There's a bunch of other ones here also. Are we finished? Let's go back to host. Still 97%. All right, it's finally finished. So just to kind of recap here, we used Nessus to do both an authenticated scan against our local host, which is Windows Server 2016 with the desktop experience. That's why we have a GUI. We also ran Nessus against the local host, the same system, authenticated. So we had a big difference here in the scans. If we go, like, let's just start with unauthenticated. We have 2 medium findings, not a lot. But this is like the perspective of the attacker from a black box penetration test perspective. If we go to authenticated, which is really the accurate picture. We have 10 criticals, 32 highs, and 12 mediums, which is pretty bad, especially these two right here. The criticals, we've got several criticals right here, including the MS17010, which is Eternal Blue, and we have a few other ones as well right here. The malware protection we went over. But the whole moral of the story in this video is you certainly want to do authenticated scans. So hopefully we learned a little bit about Nessus, which is a vulnerability assessment tool, and you've learned about the differences between authenticated and unauthenticated scans. Some people call authenticated credentialed scans, and they would say the unauthenticated or non-credentialed scans. If you have questions or would like some more information, you can leave a comment below or a question below the video. If you'd like a future video or have a request, you can also leave that. Hopefully you found this video exciting and educational. So typically I don't end the videos with a joke, but I thought I'll do one here to kind of kick it up a notch. So why did the hamburger and French fries beat the chicken across the road? I know you're thinking hard about it. The reason is the hamburger and French fries are fast food, much faster than the chicken. All right, talk to you later.